The last time Tai Tuivasa was on a three-fight losing streak in the UFC, he went on to rally off 5 straight victories. Well, here he is at UFC Vegas 88 in the main event slot against Marcin Tybura, and he's coming in on a three-fight skid. Will this be the start of another title contention run for Bam Bam? It's hard to believe it'll be 7 years come November since Tai Tuivasa entered the UFC. Way back in 2017, he started his UFC tenure with 2 straight knockouts and a decision victory over Andrei Arlovski. That earned him a jump into relatively deep waters in the time. In 2018, he lost to Junior Dos Santos, and what sent him on a 3-fight losing streak spiral, followed by losses to Blagoy Ivanov and Sergey Spivak. And then after a 1-year layoff between October 2019 and October 2020, he would start a 5-fight win streak, a 5-fight knockout streak where we didn't see a fight go longer than a minute and 40 into the second round. He capped that win streak off with 2 knockouts over Augusto Sakai, a ranked opponent, and a top 10 at the time, Derek Lewis. That immediately catapulted Tai Tuivasa into what was essentially a title eliminator fight with Cyril Gane in Paris in September of 2022. After having moments in that fight where Tai Tuivasa nearly knocked out the unbeatable, on the feet at least, Cyril Gane, he did inevitably get defeated by TKO in the third round, and we would see Gane go on just 6 months later to fight for the heavyweight championship against John Jones in March of 2023. So had Tai Tuivasa ended up winning that fight, finishing that knockdown sequence that he had, he would have been the guy fighting John Jones for the title. Isn't that just mind-blowing to think of that matchup in your head? And I don't even mean that in a bad way. It's just the simple statures of the two guys, the differences in their physiques and their skill sets, the way in which they approach fights. What a fight that would have been last March. But that's not what we got. And instead, Cyril Gane started what is now a 3-fight losing streak again for Tai Tuivasa. This time the competition much steeper. It was against Cyril Gane, who's been an interim champion, fought for the undisputed title 2 times. He then went on to get knocked out by Sergey Pavlovich, who just in November fought Tom Aspinall, for the interim championship where he would lose. And the third loss would come in September of last year in a submission via Ezekiel choke to Alexander Volkov. So this is his first fight back since September of 2023. A little bit of a layoff for Bam Bam here, but he needs a bounce back in a big way. Unfortunately, it may not come as easy because Marcin Tybura has been there and done that with pretty much everyone in the heavyweight division. At 38 years old, Marcin Tybura is still in a relatively, if not the best spot of his career if you want to go back down the list here. He has won 7 of his last 9 fights. The only 2 losses were to Tom Aspinall last July, in which earned Tom Aspinall the right to fight for the interim belt in November, and the other loss was to Alexander Volkov in October of 2021. Outside of that, he's been beating everyone, and for the most part, relatively easy. He may not be the most exciting heavyweight in the world to watch, like Tai Tuivasa can have the claim to throw his name for that discussion. Of those 7 wins, only 2 are by knockout to Walt Harris and Greg Hardy. However, they are still solid wins throughout this win streak. Sergey Spivak, Blagoy Ivanov, Alexander Romanov, he kind of shut down the hype that was behind Romanov at the time back in 2022. So none that are extremely big names in the heavyweight division. The 2 biggest names of that stretch are the 2 losses that he had, Aspinall and Volkov. So can he right the ship here, bounce back from his loss last July, and defeat Tai Tuivasa? I look for this to be a relatively simple fight in terms of the X's and O's too, because Tai has shown to use grappling to his advantage in a lot of these victories. And if he can't get Tai Tuivasa down, he could be in danger. 5 of his 8 losses, Tybura that is, have been by knockout, including the most recent one to Tom Aspinall. And if you just go to Tai Tuivasa's last loss, what happened? He gets taken down and he gets submitted by someone that is not known whatsoever for getting submission finishes. He was dominant on the ground. Tai Tuivasa had no way of getting up, and that was against Alexander Volkov, someone who I would imagine wouldn't be as heavy as Marcin Tybura and definitely not as experienced and well versed in the grappling exchanges. Those other two losses are via crazy knockout, which I don't see Marcin Tybura just coming in and fighting Tai the way that Sergey Pavlovich did. And of course, he's nowhere near the technical striker that Cyril Gane is en route to the beautiful finish that he had. So if Tai can defend takedowns, I think he can get Marcin out of there relatively quickly. However, if Tybura gets Tai down, I think he can get Tuivasa out of there quickly with ground and pound strikes and or a submission. He does have 6 submissions to his name and 9 KO TKOs. A lot of those coming with the ground and pound versions of Marcin Tybura. At the end of the day, it's number 9 versus number 10. It's a battle to remain relevant within the upper echelon of the heavyweight division. And really, if you want to truly break down the upper echelon, it may start at number 5 Curtis Blades and go up to the champion John Jones. But being top 10 and top 15, regardless, is a milestone in itself in the UFC. These two guys fighting to not put together a losing streak if you're Tybura, and to not continue adding on to your losing streak if you are Tai Tuivasa. I look for a finish. I look for it relatively quickly. Both guys looking to make statements. Both guys looking to bounce back, hold their spot within the top 10, remain prominent in the heavyweight division. And now we'll get into some other quick hitters throughout the main card and prelims. Again, it's an Apex Fight Night. It's not the most stacked or deepest card, so let's just hit them all together, shall we? Bryan Battle has started out his UFC career 5-1, with the only loss coming to Hanat Fakhretdinov back in December of 2022. Outside of that, he has looked damn good. 4 of those 5 wins are by finish, and 2 of them are with nasty knockouts. The first one was a head kick to Takashi Sato, and he had a brutal one-punch finish in his home state against Gabe Green that lasted a whopping 14 seconds. He's fighting Dana White Contender Series alum Ange Loosa, who lost to Jack Della Maddalena in their amazing DWCS fight back in 2021. If you haven't seen that scrap, go back and watch it. Loosa would earn his way into the UFC, however. He's 2-1, the only loss coming to Munir Laziz, and he's won 2 straight fights by decision against AJ Fletcher and Reese McKee. That most recent one was in September of 2023. Bryan Battle is the favorite coming to this fight, and rightfully so. I don't necessarily see it being as easy as some of these other great finishes that he's had, but for all I know, he could do it again. Pooh Bear, as he was once called. I'm seeing the Butcher right now on SureDog. If he switched names, it makes me a little bit sad. I think Pooh Bear was pretty elite, if you ask me, in the world of nicknames, but the Ultimate Fighter winner, Bryan Battle, will look to make it 6 out of 7 in the UFC and put his name one step closer to the welterweight rankings. We have a fight that a lot of people are talking about in the community this week between Christian Rodriguez and Isaac Dulgarian. Christian Rodriguez has taken 2 straight perfect records away. He played spoiler to Raul Rosas Jr. and Cameron Simon back to back, April of last year and in October of last year. He now takes on the 6-0 Isaac Dulgarian. Can it be 3 straight massive upsets for the underdog, Christian Rodriguez? Hey, for what it's worth, the women's bantamweight division, it's kind of moving. We had the title fight in January. This fight card, we're getting 4 top 15 fighters squaring off. We have number 6, Pannie Kianzad versus number 10, Macy Chiasson. And lower in the prelims, number 13, Josiane Nunes versus number 14, Chelsea Chandler. Movement is movement at the end of the day. That is what 135 desperately needs, is for the fighters to fight and for people to move throughout the rankings, for people to get closer to title contention. Gerald Meeschaert and Bryan Barberena are going to battle on this card. 2 veterans, longtime veterans at that, for the UFC. There's a fun strawweight scrap in the second fight of the night between Jaqueline, Amorim, and Cory McKenna, 2 prospects on the outside looking in at 115 pounds. So there are fun scraps on the card for sure. Anything's going to look bad, quote unquote, when you're coming off of UFC 299 last week. So I feel for all the people fighting on this weekend's card, but hey, we've got 13 fights on the ballot. Let's have some fun this weekend. UFC Vegas 88 at the Apex. Let me know in the comments below your predictions for the heavyweight main event. Number 9, Tai Tuivasa. Number 10, Marcin Tybura. Will the losing streak come to an end for Tuivasa and start another win streak, or will Tybura fend it off and make his winning record over the past 10 fights at 80% clip? Give me your predictions of how you think it will end as well, alongside your other predictions and bets for UFC Vegas 88 in the comments below. If you enjoyed this preview, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss my breakdowns such as these every single week for the biggest and best mixed martial arts fights. I also give my recaps of the most meaningful results every single week and my thoughts and opinions when we get MMA news and fight announcements. Sometimes it just feels like it's few and far in between, but when they happen, you can find them right here, whether it's a long form video or a short, right here on the Below Average Joe's MMA show. Join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA and follow along on your favorite podcasting platforms such as Spotify and Apple as well. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.